What's up YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and today we've got a big one for you. I stopped by two different Wells Fargo branches and asked for 10 rolls of each denomination, and you can see at one branch we had lots of customer wrapped, and at the other branch we had quite a bit of Loomis wrapped and very little customer wrapped. So I'm excited to get into these rolls. We've got $350 in total and change in front of us, and we'll be going through them in the order you see here. And I'll be sure to bring you in on anything old, interesting, valuable, or just kind of unique. So let's go ahead and jump into the pennies and see how this gets going. So we're going to do our best to keep track of which bank has which finds in it, but we may lose track of it throughout the hunt. But for those of you that are new to coin roll hunting, I do have a couple of resources that I want to talk about here. The first being the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book. That is something that I use for a great search list, and it has pictures of each of the various like repunch mint marks and double die obverses and things that you might want to look for. So this is a fantastic resource. I do have this linked in the description down below. It's my Amazon affiliate link. So if you need a book, there's that. And if you're looking for something that's more free, I do have a document that I created a long time ago that you can download. It's on my Google Drive, and it also includes a little penny mat that you can download and print out. So those are resources that we're going to need, and we're going to go ahead and jump into these pennies. Let's go ahead and get one roll open real quick here on camera and just kind of go through it and see what we can find. Now, in pennies, there are a million things to look for. But one of the main things we pull out of all of our penny hunts is all of our copper, which is going to be 1982 and earlier. And 82 was a split year, so they could be copper plated zinc. They could also be full on copper, and you do have to weigh them to tell the difference. So a copper penny weighs 3.1 to 3.2 grams, and a copper plated zinc weighs about 2.5, 2.6 grams. So what I'm doing here really quickly is just going through trying to find my copper. So these first two I pulled aside, we've got a 75 and a 79. Now some of the rest of this, I'll go back through and see if we can identify any DDOs or DDRs on. There's another 75. That other one I threw down was like a 78. So we do have a good bit of copper in here. There's a 95 that could have a DDO. See here, 2003, there's going to be copper right there. You can tell a lot of times by the color. Now that's actually a 1991. I don't know what that is. I'll have to put that under the scope. There is a 1970D. That needs to be scoped. Throwing pennies off the table. 1973 copper. Now the reason I pull all my copper is that they're about 3 cents a penny worth of copper in every copper penny. So I do pull those and roll those separately and hang on to them. And that roll we did come across, it looks like 7 copper pennies, possibly 2 more based on what's in there. So I'm going to keep hunting through my pennies. If I happen to find anything interesting like a DDO, DDR, repunch mint mark, I'll be sure to bring you in. So we're getting into roll number 5 from the first Wells Fargo, and we're almost towards the end, and we've come across our first official find of the hunt. We've got ourselves a 1951 Denver, which is a wheat penny. So 1958 and earlier is a wheat penny, and that's what we're looking for outside of a lot of our copper and our errors. So one actual find on the hunt. We are keeping track of our copper per roll, and we did come across a couple of the commemorative 2009 pennies in pretty darn good shape, but they're not worth a whole lot. They're just interesting because there's some DDRs on a couple of them, and I've already checked them, but we didn't have one. So we're going to keep on hunting and get through these first 10 from bank number 1. So we're getting through roll number 6. We're about 3/4 of the way through. The penny I wanted to talk about is already under the scope, and it is a 1960. I'm only bringing you in to let you know there are 2 different types of 1960s. There's a small date and a large date, and the easiest way to tell the 2 apart is really looking at the 1 and the 9. If the 1 is below the 9, it's actually the large date. And if the 1 is parallel or even slightly above, it is the small date. You can also tell from the stems. They're slightly bigger on the 6 and the 9, but it's tough to tell them apart if you don't have 2 of them. side by side to look at. So the easiest thing to look at is this 1 and the height of the 9. So we've got a 1960 large date here. Unfortunately, not the more rare small date, but just wanted you to know that if you didn't know already. So we're getting through roll number 1 of bank number 2, and it didn't produce a whole lot of copper so far. We're about 6 coins from the end, but we did come across a wheat penny. Let's see what we got. A 1957 Denver. So we are 5 rolls in, and we've come across another wheat penny. So now this second bank is technically winning in my book, even if it produces less copper. We've got a 1957 Denver. Okay, well that's going to wrap us up for our pennies. We have bank number 1, our first 10 rolls over here, and bank number 2 with our second 10 rolls over here. And what I've got is, in the first 10 rolls, we did come across 1 wheat penny, which I brought you in for. It was a 1951 Denver. I did keep all of the copper separated by roll, so roll 1 here, roll 10 here. And you can see like rolls 9 and 10 just loaded with copper, so 1982 and earlier. So tons and tons of copper there. We also came across a handful of the 2009 commemorative pennies, and there were 4 different commemorative reverses. We missed out on the early childhood here, but we got 3 of the formative years, 2 of the professional life, and 1 of the Capitol Dome. Now, I have full rolls of these from the bank that are pristine, so typically I throw these back, but I do like to keep track of how many I find, because typically it's not too many. Now, if we move over here to box number 2, we did the same drill, pretty much roll 11 through roll 20, and we did come across a handful of, or really 2 wheat pennies, both 1957 Denvers, and I brought you in for both of them. Outside of that, there wasn't much to see in the pennies. Now, as for value, we had 81 copper pennies on rolls 1 through 10. We had 61 copper pennies in rolls 11 through 20, and that includes the wheat pennies. So if we were to do this by just copper value, Bank 1 had $2.30 worth of copper. Bank 2 had, $1.73 worth of copper based on today's copper price, and combined, it was $4.03 worth of copper in these pennies. So that's why I hang on to the copper ones. Of course, I roll my wheaties separately, and these will go back to the bank. So with that, the pennies are done, and we're going to move on to those dimes next. So same drill on the dimes. However, we're not going to look for any DDOs or DDRs on these because the dimes really don't have that much to look for. There is a W 1996 that is out there, but they're pretty tough to come by. The 2009 was really, really low mintage, and I think the 2004 Denver has a double ear that you can find. Outside of that, there's random die chips and things, but people typically don't pay a whole lot for those, so I don't bother looking for them. And what I'm going to do on camera here is just go through and open all the rolls and just do a quick scan for silver. And then we'll move on to the next roll. And if we're not finding anything, we'll go ahead and fast forward. Well, that's going to do it for our first 10 rolls. As you can see, I know it probably went by really fast, but there was not a whole lot to look at from a silver perspective, and nothing really jumped out at me like from a proof perspective or anything too shiny or interesting that's worth doubling back on. So I'm going to get these first 10 re-rolled, and then we're going to get into the next 10 rolls. So let's jump into these next 10 dime rolls, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the customer wrapped ones because they'll be the easiest ones to get out of the wraps. And then we'll move on to the Loomis. And just like the first 10, if we're not finding anything, we'll just fast forward and zoom on through. Something maybe of interest for some of you, the dimes were incredibly short in the last 10. I think we turned up something like 9 or 10 dimes short on the rewrap. So somebody cheated the bank, and there's a really ugly, just beat up dime. Not worth anything, but we'll pull that ugly thing to the side. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the second set of dimes. As you can see, you know, I do go through these really, really quickly. Not looking for anything other than silver, like I said in the beginning. I will check for things that are shiny just to make sure they're not proofs or something that maybe just catches my eye. But that is 20 rolls of dimes and not a whole lot to look at, and that's why I don't do a ton of dime hunts. So I'll get these rewrapped, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the nickels. All right, well, hopefully this heats up a little bit with our nickels because the dimes were a bust. The pennies, we just got some copper and 3 Wheaties. So now we have our first Wells Fargo with 10 customer wrapped, our second Wells Fargo with 10 bank wrapped. So for the nickels, it's going to be a little bit of a customer wrap v bank wrap here. Let's open up 3 of the nickel rolls on camera just to see what they're looking like and see if we have any anything interesting in here. We've got some gold toned ones, it looks like. I'll go through these really quickly, looking for things like 1959 and earlier. Here's a 42. Now, I was hoping that was going to be a war nickel because our war nickels are 42 to 45, but the mint mark would be up here above the Monticello building, and as you can see here, it is not. It does have kind of a silvery color to it, but it is just going to be a regular nickel. So within our nickels, there's a ton to look for. I do have, again, that document in the description down below this video that has everything that I'll be hunting for. The things we really want to find, though, are our silver war nickels. Again, 42 to 45, anything 1959 and earlier. And I've got another one right here. What is that? Can't read the date on it. This looks like it's 1946. It looked like a 45 to the naked eye, but we've got a 46 right here. I'll put that up top. Where did I put my 42? So we got 2 40s in the first roll here. So where was I? Of course, we're looking for our San Francisco proofs. We're looking for our Buffalo nickels, our V nickels. And that might be about it. And then Henning nickels, which those are a couple of years where nickels were faked. And there's only a few years there in the document, the description down below. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what years they were. We've got some sort of 40-something here. There's some damage on the date. Looks like we've got a Denver mint mark. Under the scope, literally the date has been completely scratched off. But it is a Denver. So we'll put it up here with the rest of our 40s. And then these guys... 70, there's a 47. So that's a little strange, finding 4 40s era nickels in one roll from a customer, but I'll take it. So maybe I'll just do 2 rolls on camera just to keep the length of the video down, and then I will bring you in as I find things like we've done a little bit earlier. There's some other 40s that I just saw right there. So there's a 41. That is a 41 Philly. And if any of these have any DDOs or DDRs, I'll be sure to check for it, and I'll bring you back in if we find anything. But I'm not real lucky on finding double die obverses and reverses and stuff like that with nickels. But one day I will, I'm sure. So there's nothing there. All right, well, I'm going to go off camera. I'll keep hunting the nickels and bring you in as we find things. Well, I was pulling out one more roll to get open before I started hunting through them. And of course, I'd already put the phone up. But we got misstuffed by a dime, so we're making a nickel on roll number 3. They give us a good one. 1994 Philly. All right, so I've been cleaning up those first 3 rolls. I actually started with that 3rd roll first, and I've got a coin under the scope that I want to talk about. I've been looking at it for about 15 or 20 minutes and trying to convince myself I have found the 2000 Philly double die obverse. But I would love for you guys to see it and get your thoughts in the comments down below. Here's the coin, circulated condition, $5 to $8, so not a high value little error here, but when you take a look at the picture in here, we've got a double serif on the S and another big belly of an S there, some spreading on the T. Now this is going to be really hard to see, and I actually don't see it all on my coin. That looks like the E from Liberty. But have a look at those, and then we're going to come over here to my coin, and I've gone ahead and put this on my larger scope just so we can get in really, really close to this coin. And part of me wants to say this is just sort of some severe strike doubling or something slipped during the strike, but you can see in we've got what looks kind of like typical strike doubling. On the E, we've got a second serif on the E right here, which is really interesting. But when we get over here into trust, that S looks an awful lot like the picture that I showed you. We've got a double belly, and we've got another whole back end of an S here. So like that looks like one S. That looks like the other. And we have some spread on that T over here. So I'm really struggling to say with 100% certainty this is the 2000 double die obverse. And actually it looks like you even got some double serifing over here. That could be some damage. But I don't have the E and the R, because I'll come over here and show you that. Like we don't have a really good double serif down here on the E like in the book, but we do have a little bit up here. And in mine, which I don't have a picture of, the zeros in 2000 look really spread. They look really thick and really fat. So, you know, I really want to call this the 2000 Philly double die obverse. I'm not going to stake my reputation on it, but if you have some thoughts about this coin, let me know in the comments down below. You can see we've got a little bit of junk on here, so not a high quality quarter. That said, we have really good steps on the back. I mean, there's some damage, but you've got steps almost all the way across. So anyway, it is a decent looking nickel, but not the best. So again, let me know in the comments down below. So bank number 1 is done. I brought you in for pretty much everything. I'll just scan over it here real quick in case you're fast forwarding. The one thing I didn't bring you in for was I did come across one of the oh-so-valuable 2024 Philadelphias, and it's actually in really, really good shape. So if you're not hanging on to your 24 Phillies and Denvers, you really should. Super low mintage for modern nickels. Other than that, everything you've already seen, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the bank-wrapped Loomis rolls. So we were getting through roll number 1 of our Loomis wrapped, and I was going to film unwrapping it and decided not to, and now I wish I had, because as I spread them out, as you can see, something did jump out at me that was old, and not just an old Jefferson nickel. We've got an old Buffalo in here. Let's check it out together. We do have a mint mark. We've got a Denver back there, so that could be interesting for us. Let's see. And we've got a full date 1937 Indian Head Buffalo nickel with a Denver mint mark. So I'm going to check that out. Usually our Denvers are pretty low mintage. So I'm real curious what this is going to cost. I'll put it up on the screen or do a snippet from PCGS or from my red book so you guys can see the mintage on this thing and the value. So pretty cool. Nice find. Roll number 1 of bank number 2. So we're getting through rolls 3 and 4, and we're about 3/4 of the way through roll number 3. And I've got 2 2023 Philadelphias pulled aside because I did accidentally really see something that I wanted to bring you in for. It's not something I typically look for. But on the back of the 2023 Philly, there's all kinds of DDRs and die chips to look for. I usually check the lettering in Monticello because that's where I typically find some doubling. But in looking at the coin, I happened to catch this out of the corner of my eye. Just backing out here so you can see, it's the big arched window over the main door in the middle. You can see very clearly here, we've got a double window right there, and you can see more of it peeking out there on the bottom. And I went on Brian's Variety Coins, and it looks like he has this listed as the 2023 Philly WDDR 036 under the Best of Nickel Double Die Varieties. And some of the markers, and I'll throw an image of what he's got on his website up here on the screen, but it's tough to see any kind of doubling up here in this pillar because we've got a little bit of gunk and dirt up here. But the other place that he points out there's just a tiny little bit of doubling. It's right here in the corner of the side window. So I'm pretty sure that's what this is, the WDDR 036. But again, the main telltale here is this upper half circle window. And the reason I had two 2023 Phillies pulled aside is, oh, well, that's a 2022. I thought it was no, it's a 23. I wanted to check to see if all of the half circle windows kind of had that little shadowing or doubling, and they don't. So that's how I knew we had something interesting to look at. So we'll put that on the board as a find, and if I can find a value for that on eBay, I'll make sure to put it on the screen here, or we'll talk about it during the wrap-up. So we're getting through rolls 9 and 10, and we've come across our next find here in bank number 2, or roll number 19, I guess. We've got our 1953, no mint marks. We got a 53 Philly, and this is one of the Henning nickel years. I talked about this earlier in the video, but typically they weigh more than 5 grams. Another way to tell if you've got one is there's usually a hole in the base of the R or a big die crack going up through the north side of Monticello up into the word pluribus. This coin has none of them. Let's weigh it really quickly just to be sure. We are at exactly 5 grams, so just a 1953 nickel. Well, that's going to wrap up the nickels. In bank number 1, we had 5 finds in the 39 to 59 range. Of course, we had that questionable 2000 Philly DDO that I'd love you guys' opinion on. We covered that in detail earlier in the video. And of course, we have the 2024 Philly, which I talked about. Those things are kind of stupid valuable, and we got overstuffed with a dime, so we made 2 nickels there. Now, in the second 10 rolls from bank number 2, which honestly, if I had to say bank 1 versus bank 2, I would probably give the edge to bank 2 only because I love my full date Buffalo nickels, and we got ourselves a 1937 Denver. You can see that D at the bottom of the nickel. And we found a new DDR that I've never found before in that 2023 that we also covered earlier in the video. So your mileage will vary. Would you like a couple of cool finds, or would you like a lot more finds? Now, that 2000 might end up being really cool. Just not sure yet. Well, with that, so far I would say the nickels are beating the dimes and the pennies for sure. And we're going to go ahead and get into those quarters. All right, well, let's open up maybe 2 or 3 of these customer wrapped rolls of quarters from the first Wells Fargo. Remember, all 10 of these rolls will be customer wrapped. We have no Loomis to go through here. And like the nickels, we'll just do a quick silver hunt, see if anything's jumping out at us as really old or interesting looking. Nothing right there. We'll go back through looking for all the various die chips, DDOs, DDRs, repunch mint marks, those kinds of things that we look for in every quarter hunt. And again, we do have that document and description down below, and we got something right here looking really silvery. It looks a little thin. Let's see if it's Canadian. And I usually do that using some magnets. And it is definitely Canadian. 1989. Now, I usually go to Canada first. We do get a fair amount of Bahamian coins that come through here and Mexican coins, but typically, when they look like this and they're this thin, they are Canadian. So 1989. Foreign on the hunt. Would have been really nice had that been some silver. Just look too shiny and new, quite frankly. And let's do one more roll here. And then I'll go back through hunting for our various errors and such. And I already see something I didn't want to see. So one of these Wells Fargos, they've got somebody that's been returning a lot of rolls, and they're always either shorted or they're misstuffed or whatever. And here we are with a nickel and a quarter roll a 1992. We hate seeing that because we lose 20 cents every time that happens, but it's part of the hobby. So, all right, well, I'll go back through these. I'll bring you in as we find interesting things. Well, those first 10 rolls flew by and it wasn't very productive. We did have 3 misstuffed rolls with nickels, so we were shorted by 20, 40, 60 cents there. Of course, we got our Canadian quarter, which we found early on. A couple of bicentennials. I always check those Denvers for the really valuable double die obverse. I'm still on the hunt for one of those. Never found one. We did get 2 Philadelphias. I'll probably toss that one back, but these 2 are pretty nice. We'll hang on to them. I hang on to all my 2009, 10, and 11s, and usually my 12s as well. We didn't find a whole lot of those in this hunt. We had just those first 10 rolls, just this one 2010 Yosemite, California there. And I found a couple of just nicer, older quarters that will probably be upgrades for my albums. I'm not going to cover that in this video, but we'll check these against my albums, and if they're upgrades, we'll go ahead and upgrade them. But no DDOs, no DDRs, nothing like that. Really, this foreign's probably the coolest thing we found. So with that, let's hope these Loomis rolls turn it around, or maybe this one customer roll. So let's jump into it. So we're getting into rolls 3 and 4, and just bringing you in because it's not something I find a lot of. I think this might be the second Ida B. Wells I've come across hunting quarters, and we have a Philly. It's kind of messed up. It's not a great looking coin, but it may end up going in my albums just as a placeholder until we get something a little bit nicer. And let's see here. We've pulled a couple of the new 2024, and I don't think that one might be 2023. No, they're both 2024 Denvers, also for my albums. And on roll number 4, we had a bicentennial ender. Let's see here. We've got a Denver. And let's check it for that DDO. You would find it really easily here in the E and the R of Liberty, which we don't have. And you can also find it down here in God We Trust, which I don't see it there either, so just another Denver bicentennial. Well, it took us all the way up to roll number 9 of bank number 2 to find a little die chip error, and it is the 2023 Philly Kanaka Ole. And you'll notice I'll zoom in right here. There is, at the top of that little mountain, a great big die chip that's not supposed to be there. A lot of these have die chips down in the incused Edith Kanaka Ole part. I don't really collect those anymore because they're so common. But this little die chip on the mountain seems to be a little bit more rare, so I typically hang on to those. So we're all the way up here on roll number 10. We're just getting started, just a few coins in. I've got the new 2024 Philadelphia's at Kalasa under the scope. And this is an error I found in the last couple of hunts. I don't see it that often, but it's where we have a big old die chip up here on top of the bird or the dove that's not supposed to be there. You should actually see this ray of sunshine actually go between the wing and the head, but we've got a big old die chip right there. And there seems to always be an accompanying little chip right here on the tail in all the ones I've found so far. So anyway, another little die chip error for you to keep your eye out for. Well, that's going to wrap up the second set of quarters, and while we did pull a lot of coins, we didn't have all that many kind of interesting finds. I'll start over here in that we did hang on to all the 2009s, 10s, 11s, and 12s that we came across, and there was just 5 of them out of those 10 rolls. We did get the die chip in the bird here on the Zit Kalasa, and we got the die chip up on the mountain on the Kanaka Ole. So those are technically little mint errors, so those were kind of the real 2 finds that we had. We had 5 bicentennials, 3 Phillies, 2 Denvers, and then everything over here is either going to be a book upgrade. I checked my quarter albums, and we're not going to get into me punching these down, but the 2013 was an upgrade, the 1967 was an upgrade, and this 2003 was an upgrade. We'll have a hole filler here with the, I always forget the name, Ida B. Wells. Again, it's not pretty, but it's a hole filler, and we did get one upgrade here on this Denver 2024's at Kalasa, because the one I have is pretty beat up. This one's not great, but it's better than what I have. So that was the second set of quarters. We went over the first set of quarters. I'm not sure what I would call the winner. We definitely had more finds out of those Loomis rolls than we did out of the customer wrap. So maybe if we did it that way, I would say the bank number 2 quarters won. I'm not pulling everything back up from the rest of the hunt. Of course, we found nothing in the dimes. And the pennies, we came across 3 wheat cents, 2 1957Ds, and a 1951D. And the nickels were probably my favorite of the whole bunch because we did come up with that 1937 Denver Buffalo. We found a potential 2000 Philly DDO, which is pretty rare. and a new 2023 Philly DDR, and of course those very valuable 2024 Phillies. So the rest were just sort of regular finds that we would hunt for 1959 and earlier. So that kind of wraps up the hunt. It's $350 down, and we did pull a fair amount of things, but not a great deal of value there. And if I didn't do it during the video, as I went through these, I'll go ahead and throw eBay comps on the screen for anything that was kind of valuable. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know. Drop one down below, click that like button, and leave me a comment. If you're new to the channel, make sure you click on that subscribe button, then click that little bell and select all so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you to my channel members for supporting me each and every month. Really, really appreciate it. And with that, I got to get all these coins or all the stuff I'm sending back to the bank out because I think I got a couple of boxes of $50 waiting for me. So I got to go get those. So with that, I hope you guys are doing well. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.